نام حق، به نام آنکه دوستی را آفرید، عشق را، رنگ را، به نام آنکه کلمه را آفرید. In the name of the truth, in the name of the one who created friendship, who created love and colors, in the name of the one who created words. A few colleagues and I founded the IABA in December of 2000, as Ramin said, nearly 20 years ago. Soon after, there was 9/11. And a few weeks after that, I received a call from this lady who at the time was leading the Society of Iranian Professionals in Northern California. I didn't know her, but we had just built IABA's website, and I was the president, so she reached out. Incidentally, back then, it wasn't like now when Ramin is the president of this vast national organization. There was 4 of us, and I was the president of 4. مورچه چیه که کله پاچش باشه. Although we did grow soon after. In any event, she said in the aftermath of 9/11, they wanted to make a gesture on behalf of Iranian Americans to either take out a full-page ad in the New York Times condemning the attack and expressing our solidarity and sympathy to the victims, or to buy a fire truck and donate it to the New York City Fire Department on behalf of Iranian Americans. I readily acknowledged that they were both fantastic ideas and offered our help. She said we really don't need any help other than to raise the required funds, a couple of $100,000. I asked who else she had contacted. She said the only national organizations I could find were you and AIC, Houshang Amir Ahmadi. I told her that unfortunately we didn't have that kind of money, but were otherwise more than willing to help in any way we could. So a close friend, family friend of mine is from Amol and tells the story of his great uncle who was relatively wealthy. A younger cousin who had fallen on hard times and needed money pays the uncle a visit and says, "Dear uncle, I need some money urgently and would like to ask you for 2 favors. 1, to lend me the money, and 2, to give me some time to pay you back." The uncle listens intently, shakes his head, and says, "Amu John, I really can't lend you any money, but I'll give you all the time you want." So our story was kind of similar. We didn't have money, but offered any other help which she didn't need. In any event, the idea, as good as it was, as important and timely as it was, did not materialize. That was, in a nutshell, the state of our community and Iranian American civic society 20 years ago. We have indeed come a very long way. That must be a source of pride and great satisfaction for all of you, especially those who have been engaged in civic activities, many of whom are here today leading the many organizations that represent us. The significant strides we have made is indeed a source of pride and great satisfaction for me. I was a board member and the president of IABA for 2 terms, about 4 or 5 years. And we had a fantastic board. Nader Salehi and Shahrukh Babai and Surush Shahabi in Washington, D.C., Tamila Qudsi, Sirus Amir Mukri, and Nader Ahari, who helped start the New York chapter, Ali Mojdehi, who started IABA's Southern California chapter. And in case you're wondering, I deliberately tell you their names because it is important. But at the end of the 2 terms, we pretty much all decided to step aside. Many people came to me and other board members at the time and tried to convince us to stay put. They would say, "You've done a good job with IABA, But if you step down, the future will be uncertain, and like many other groups, it may quickly fold. And I remember telling them that we were more interested in building an institution that was not identified by particular individuals, something that we Iranians have not been historically very good at, and that we were willing to take a chance. I would tell them that everyone knows the Red Cross, but no one knows the president of the Red Cross, and that we aspire to go that route. And I am glad we did. Some 15 years later, as demonstrated by this gathering, IABA is alive and well, led by the next generation of capable and dedicated Iranian-American lawyers. That is also a source of pride and great satisfaction for me. To lay the foundation for IABA, we would reach out to Iranian-American lawyers and others to seek their input. Many would say, why do we need a legal organization of Iranian Americans? If I'm a patent lawyer, I can join the patent bar. What are the unique issues that we have in common as Iranian American lawyers and as a community at large? After much debate, we arrived at a mission that provided what was at least a partial answer. Activities that benefit our members, such as mentoring, scholarship for law students, and networking. But as important as these are, we were more ambitious, and that seemed and was in fact limited and limiting. So with much soul searching, in the fall of 2002, at one of our first big events in the Arts Club of Washington, D.C., where Trita, who was then starting NIAC, spoke, and where Hassan Namazi, who had just started IAPAC, also spoke, I proposed that in addition to substantive issues such as immigration and civil rights, we had a common interest in building our community, to improving our image that was impacted by the politics and the situation in Iran, and to build our political influence in Washington and elsewhere in the country, and that every Iranian American would benefit from those goals. Perhaps the idea was well received, and in fact, Paya later adopted these as the 3 pillars of its original mission, which was later altered, I think for good reason. Concerning our mission, we also decided that IABA would focus on matters of domestic U.S. concern to the Iranian-American community, and would stay away from U.S.-Iran relations and related political and policy developments in Iran and the U.S. I and others more or less unanimously felt those issues were too divisive, too political, too sensitive, if you know what I mean. That view remained the near unanimous consensus with other organizations that I also helped organize, such as the IAPAC and PAYA. In effect, as much as we are undeniably, directly, and profoundly affected by the state of US-Iran relations, this issue became the elephant in the room that we chose to ignore. Some organizations like NIAC have been more willing to address these issues, and I give them credit for that. And some other organizations have over time gingerly and to varying degrees perhaps moved in that direction. But overall, I think this elephant in the room remains, and many, if not most members of our community remain reluctant to publicly address it. We all talk about it with friends and family at home, but not publicly. Perhaps the approach of avoiding US-Iran relations was justified 20 years ago, when our community was not as well established or self-assured, and we were just beginning to organize ourselves in the national arena. But let's face it, politics and policies in both Tehran and Washington, and the resultant dire state of US-Iran relations is at the heart of nearly all significant issues that present unique challenges to us. Civil rights, the visa ban and immigration issues, and the impact of economic sanctions, to name a few, as has been discussed today. I have therefore admittedly come around full circle and firmly believe that we should no longer avoid these issues relating to US-Iran relations. Instead, in addition to issues that are currently of primary focus and as important as they are, our community and organizations representing us should perhaps, as a matter of greater priority and focus, more forcefully and directly address policies that impact US-Iran relations based on principles that clearly have widespread support among Iranian Americans, as repeatedly, pretty much every year, has been demonstrated by annual surveys undertaken by PAYA. Every person and organization has every right to choose its mission and the issues that are of importance to it. And no one will be justified in passing judgment on that choice and prerogative. That said, if an issue is important to me and affects me and my loved ones, it is imperative that I take personal responsibility for that. For too long, we as a community have chosen to more or less in public discourse and as part of our civic engagement, sidestep the one issue that has undeniably had the greatest impact on us, our family and friends, Iranian Americans, and even Iranians at large, our family, our friends, people we grew up with. We cannot expect others to address these issues, and we cannot hope for circumstances to fortuitously solve them. And we may, in fact, pleasantly surprise ourselves at how much positive impact we may be able to have on this issue, only if we make it a focus and a priority. But we won't know unless and until we try. Just as we had no clue whatsoever when we started IABA that it would withstand the test of time with flying colors, and that we would be gathered here today, some 2 decades later, to celebrate its accomplishments. I hope I have not gone over my allotted time, but having been away from these gatherings for some time, I had a few personal thoughts that I wanted to share with you. Thank you for your indulgence.